The heart monitor screamed, not a gentle beep, a sharp, angry alarm that cut through the hospital room like a knife. Nurses rushed in. A doctor shouted instructions. The white curtains fluttered as people pushed past each other. Someone yanked the IV stand closer to the bed. On the bed lay Damian Caldwell, one of the richest men in Canada. White, powerful, feared. His eyes were closed, his face pale, his lips slightly open as if he was trying to breathe through a heavy dream. A clear tube ran from his arm to a bag hanging above him. The bag was labeled with neat black letters. But something was wrong. The liquid in the line looked off. Not cloudy like milk. Not dark like blood. Just a strange, faint tint that didn't belong. A doctor leaned in, checking Damian's pulse. "He's crashing," the doctor said, voice tight. "We're losing him." Outside the glass wall, Damian's visitors stood frozen. His younger brother Grant, in a tailored suit, stared with wide eyes. But his face wasn't full of fear. It was full of something else, like panic mixed with anger. Beside him stood Damian's fiancée, Madeline, clutching her designer purse like it was a shield. Her mouth was open, but no sound came out. And behind them were two men from Damian's company, executives with perfect hair and cold eyes. One of them whispered, "This wasn't supposed to happen, time's now." Grant snapped his head. "Shut up," he hissed. No one noticed the woman standing near the door, because people like her were easy to ignore. She wore simple navy scrubs. Her badge said, Efe Okoye, Environmental Services, but the letters were faded from too many washes. Her hands were in gloves. A small cleaning cart sat behind her. Efe was black, Nigerian, in her late 20s. Not tall, not loud, not important to anyone in that hallway. But her eyes were the sharpest in the room. She stared at Damian's The Four line. Then she stared at the faces outside the glass. And suddenly, her stomach turned cold. Because Efe had cleaned enough rooms to know the difference between stress and guilt. She saw it in Grant's eyes. She saw it in the executive's twitchy hands. And she saw it in Madeline's stiff smile, because Madeline was still trying to look calm. Like this was some kind of business meeting. Efe stepped closer to the bed. A nurse blocked her. "Ma'am, you can't be here." "I'm working," Efe said softly, holding up her gloves like proof. "This is an emergency." The nurse snapped. "I know," Efe replied. Then, as the nurse turned back to the doctor, Efe leaned in and looked closer at the IV tubing. Her heart pounded. A tiny plastic clamp on the line looked newly scratched, like someone had moved it recently. Efe's mind jumped to a memory from 2 days ago. A man in a suit had been in this same room late at night. Not a doctor, not a nurse. He had smiled at her like she was invisible, and he had said, "Don't worry, we're taking care of everything." Efe hadn't liked his smile. Now she understood why. The doctor barked, "Increase oxygen. Prepare for CPR." The nurse said, "His blood pressure is dropping." The monitor screamed again. Efe did not think. She acted. She reached out and grabbed the IV line right where it connected to Damian's arm. The nurse spun. "Hey, don't touch that." Efe's fingers trembled as she followed the tubing up to the bag. The bag had a sealed cap, but the seal looked wrong. Not broken. Not fully intact either. Like someone had peeled it back and pressed it down again. Efe's eyes widened. She swallowed hard. "Doctor," she said, voice shaking but clear. "That IV bag, I don't think it's safe." The doctor snapped his head. "What?" The nurse snapped. "She's just cleaning staff." Efe's cheeks burned. She hated that phrase. Just cleaning staff. Like her eyes didn't work. Like her brain didn't matter. She pointed. "Look at the seal. It's tampered." The doctor hesitated for half a second too long, because Damian's body suddenly jerked. His face tightened. His lips pressed together like he was in pain. Then his head tilted slightly to the side, and his heart monitor made a long, ugly sound. A flat line. A nurse screamed, "He's gone." The room exploded into movement. "Start compressions. Charge the defibrillator." Clear. The shock hit Damian's chest. His body jumped. Nothing. Again. Clear. Another shock. Still nothing. Efe's breath came fast. She felt like she was sinking into the floor. Outside the glass wall, Grant's hands clenched into fists. Madeline's eyes darted to the IV bag, then away. The executive whispered, "If he dies, we have a problem." Grant whispered back, "He won't die. He can't die." Efe heard it, and that's when she knew. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't bad luck. This was planned. And Damian Caldwell, this billionaire who everyone worshipped, had just become a target inside the safest place in the city. Efe turned to the doctor. "Stop," she said loudly. The doctor paused mid-command, stunned. "What did you say?" Efe's hands shook, but she lifted her chin. "Stop the IV," she said. "Now, replace it, flush the line, please." A nurse scoffed. "You can't tell us what to do." But the doctor's eyes locked on the IV seal again. And in that moment, something in his face changed. He saw it too. "Disconnect the bag," the doctor ordered. The nurse hesitated. "Now," the doctor shouted. The bag was pulled away. The line was clamped. A fresh bag was rushed in. They flushed the tubing. They worked like the room was on fire. Efe stepped back, hands trembling, praying quietly under her breath. "God, please, not like this. Please." The doctor shouted. One more shock. Clear. The shock hit. Damian's body jolted. A second of silence. Then, beep. A weak, shaky beep. Then another. The monitor began to sing again. A nurse cried out, "We got him back." The doctor exhaled like he had been holding his breath for a year. "He's back." Efe's knees almost gave out. But she didn't fall, because she saw something else. Through the chaos, Damian's eyelids fluttered. Just slightly, like he was trying to open them. And when his eyes finally cracked open, even for 1 second, they did not look confused. They looked aware, like he had been listening, like he had been watching, like he had been waiting. Efe froze. Damian's gaze slid across the room, past the nurses, past the doctor, and landed on her, right on her. His eyes held hers, and in that single moment, Efe understood something that made her skin prickle. Damian Caldwell had not just been sick, he had been pretending, and now someone had tried to kill him for real. Damian's lips moved, barely making sound, but Efe leaned closer and caught it. 3 words. So soft she almost missed them. "Don't trust them." Efe's breath stopped. Behind the glass wall, Grant's face twisted when he saw Damian's eyes open. Madeline's fingers tightened on her purse until her knuckles turned white, and one executive pulled out his phone and texted someone with shaking hands. Efe stepped back, her heart hammering, because she suddenly realized the truth. If they were bold enough to poison a billionaire in a hospital, what would they do to a poor black cleaner who had just ruined everything? And right then, as the staff began to relax, Efe noticed a small movement near the bottom of the bed. Something tiny, something black, taped to the metal frame under the mattress. A device, blinking with a faint red light. Efe stared at it, horrified, because she knew what it meant. This was bigger than a family fight, bigger than money whispers, bigger than a fake sickness test. This was a trap, a setup, and Damian Caldwell had placed himself in the middle of it. Efe took 1 step back, and the device blinked faster, as if it knew she had seen it. Then Efe heard a quiet click, like something had just been activated, and the hospital room lights flickered once, twice, before the entire room went dark. And in the darkness, someone whispered from the hallway, "Get the woman." Darkness swallowed the room. Not the calm kind, the dangerous kind that makes your heart race before your mind can catch up. The machine stopped beeping. The air felt heavy, like the room itself was holding its breath. Someone screamed, "Power outage." Footsteps scrambled, chairs scraped. A nurse shouted, "Emergency lights, now!" Red backup lights flickered on, casting long shadows on the walls. The hospital room looked different now. Smaller, scarier. Efe stood frozen. Her eyes were locked on the small black device under Damian's bed. The red light was still blinking, slow, steady, like a warning. Behind her, someone grabbed her arm. "Hey!" a voice snapped. Efe spun around, heart pounding. It was a security guard. White, tall, heavy boots. "What are you doing here?" he demanded. "Everyone out. I work here." Efe said quickly, pointing to her badge. I was cleaning. The guard barely glanced at it. Not now, leave. The doctor stepped forward. Wait, he said. She noticed the IV problem. She helped save him. The guard frowned, confused. Before he could reply, another voice cut in. Firm, calm, cold. Let her go. Grant Caldwell stepped into the room. Damian's brother. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. This has been stressful for everyone, Grant said smoothly. We don't need extra people making things harder. Efe felt something twist inside her. Extra people. That's what she was to them. Extra. Unnecessary. The doctor hesitated. She might have seen something important. Grant's smile tightened. Doctor, my brother almost died. Please focus on him. The doctor looked torn. Then Damian groaned softly on the bed. The sound was weak, but it pulled everyone's attention like a rope. Damian, Madeline gasped, rushing forward. Oh my God. She reached for his hand. Damian's fingers twitched, but he did not grab hers. His eyes opened slowly. He looked around the room, at the doctor, at Grant, at Madeline, at the executives standing too still near the wall. Then his gaze found Efe again, and this time he didn't look away. Water, Damian whispered. The nurse rushed to help, but Damian lifted one finger. No, he murmured. Her. The room went quiet. Grant frowned. What? Damian swallowed hard. The woman in blue. Ef's heart jumped. The nurse hesitated, then stepped aside. Efe walked to the bed on shaky legs and held the cup carefully to Damian's lips. He took a small sip. Thank you, he whispered. His voice was weak, but his eyes were sharp. Too sharp for a man who was supposed to be barely alive. Grant noticed it too. You should rest, Grant said quickly. You've been through a lot. Damian didn't answer him. Instead, he spoke again, quietly. Did the power go out everywhere? The doctor answered, No, just this wing. Backup systems are on. Damian nodded slowly, like he had expected that answer. Efe's stomach tightened. She suddenly remembered the device. The blinking red light. The click. This wasn't random. This was planned. Damian's fingers brushed Efe's wrist, just lightly, enough to get her attention. His lips barely moved. Under the bed, he whispered. Did you see it? Efe swallowed. Yes, she whispered back. A device. Damian closed his eyes for a moment. Grant watched them closely. What are you two whispering about? Grant asked, forcing a laugh. You look like you're planning a secret. Damian opened his eyes again. Grant, he said weakly. I'm tired. Grant stiffened. Of course. I'll leave you to rest. He turned to the doctor. Please make sure no one disturbs him. His eyes flicked to Efe. Sharp. Warning. Then he walked out. Madeline followed, glancing back once her eyes cold, calculating. The executives left next, murmuring into their phones. Soon only the doctor, a nurse, and Efe remained. The lights stabilized. The machines began beeping again. The world pretended everything was normal, but Efe knew better. The doctor cleared his throat. Miss Efe, right? Yes, sir. Thank you for what you did. You can go now. Efe hesitated. She looked at Damian. He met her eyes. Just for a second, he nodded. A silent message. Go. For now. Efe left the room, her legs heavy. As soon as the door closed behind her, she leaned against the wall and breathed out. Her hands were shaking. She had almost died in that room. And worse, she had made enemies who wore smiles like masks. She pushed her cleaning cart down the quiet hallway. Most people had gone home. It was late. Too late. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. She frowned. No one ever called her at work. She answered quietly. Hello? A man's voice replied. Low. Controlled. Miss Okoye, he said. Her heart skipped. Who is this? I'm someone who knows you were in Mr. Caldwell's room during the incident. Efe stopped walking. How did you get my number? She whispered. A pause. Then the man said, That's not important. Her grip tightened on the phone. What do you want? For you to forget what you saw, he replied calmly. Forget the IV. Forget the device. Forget the whispers. Efe's pulse thundered in her ears. I can't, she said softly. The man sighed. That's unfortunate. The line went dead. Efe stared at her phone, chest tight. She looked around the hallway. Empty. Too empty. Then she noticed something that made her blood run cold. Her cleaning cart had been moved, just slightly, and taped to the handle was a small white envelope. No name, no stamp, just her name written neatly across the front. F. Her fingers trembled as she opened it. Inside was a photo. Her photo, taken from across the street near her apartment. She was walking home, smiling, unaware. On the back of the photo were 4 simple words. We see you. Efe's knees weakened. She leaned against the wall, fighting panic. They knew where she lived. They were watching her. She crumpled the photo and stuffed it into her pocket. She had 2 choices: walk away, or fight back. She thought of Damian's eyes, the way he had trusted her, the way everyone else had ignored her. No, she whispered to herself. I won't disappear. Efe pushed her cart forward again, but she didn't go toward the exit. She turned down a different hallway, toward the storage rooms, toward the quiet places cameras didn't always reach, because Efe Okoye had cleaned this hospital for 3 years. She knew its blind spots, and she knew where things were hidden. As she turned the corner, her phone buzzed again. This time, it was a message. From an unknown number. Damian Caldwell. They think you're small. That makes you dangerous. Meet me tonight. We're running out of time. Efe's breath caught, because she knew something now. The billionaire wasn't just testing people. He was already at war, and she had just been pulled into the middle of it. Behind her, footsteps echoed. Fast, heavy, getting closer. Efe turned and saw 2 men in dark suits stepping into the hallway, blocking her path. One of them smiled. This way, he said. Mr. Caldwell wants a word. But Efe knew that was a lie, because Damian had just warned her, and the men's hands were already reaching inside their jackets. Efe stopped breathing, not because she wanted to, because fear had grabbed her chest and squeezed. The 2 men stood in front of her, blocking the hallway. Dark suits, no badges, no smiles that felt real. One of them tilted his head. You look confused, he said softly. We're here to help. Efe's mind raced. Hospitals had security cameras everywhere, but not in this hallway. She knew that. She had cleaned this floor for years. She had noticed which corners were always dark, which doors were always locked, which hallways stayed quiet after midnight. And this one? This one was dangerous. I'm on duty, Efe said, forcing her voice to stay calm. I need to finish my work. The second man laughed quietly. Your work is done. He stepped closer. Efe took a step back. Her heel hit the wheel of her cleaning cart. Her heart slammed. She thought of Damian's message. They think you're small. That makes you dangerous. Efe lifted her chin. If Mr. Caldwell wants to see me, he can ask himself. The first man's eyes hardened. He's resting, he said. We're handling things for him. Efe knew then. These men did not work for Damian. They worked for whoever wanted him dead. Before she could react, the second man reached for her arm. Efe screamed. Not loud. Sharp. Enough. At the same moment, she kicked the cart forward. The heavy metal frame slammed into the man's shin. He cursed. Efe ran. She ran like fear had turned into fuel. Her shoes slapped against the floor as she sprinted down the hallway, heart pounding, breath burning her chest. Stop her! Someone shouted. Footsteps thundered behind her. Efe turned sharply into a side corridor, one she knew ended near the laundry room. She pushed through the swinging doors and didn't stop. The room was warm and loud with machines. Steam hissed. Huge washers rumbled. Workers looked up in surprise as Efe burst in, eyes wild. Help! She shouted. The men hesitated at the doorway. They didn't follow her inside. Too many witnesses. Too many questions. One of them raised his finger and pointed at her slowly. You can't hide forever, he said. Then they turned and disappeared. Efe collapsed against a table, shaking. A woman rushed to her. Are you okay? Efe nodded quickly. Yes, I just felt sick. She lied. Because she had learned something important. The people after her were careful. They didn't want noise. They didn't want attention. They wanted silence. Efe left the laundry room 10 minutes later, calmer but more alert. She didn't go back to her cart. She didn't go home. She went somewhere else. Upstairs. Toward Damian's floor. But not his room. She stopped outside a small office near the nurse's station, one that belonged to a night shift supervisor named Mrs. Helen Park. Mrs. Park was strict, fair, quiet, and most importantly, she was always watching. Efe knocked softly. Mrs. Park opened the door, eyebrows lifting. Efe? You're not scheduled here. I need to talk to you, Efe said. Privately. Something in Efe's face made Mrs. Park step aside. The door closed. Efe took a deep breath and told her everything. The IV, the tampered seal, the blackout, the device under the bed, the men in the hallway. Mrs. Park listened without interrupting. When Efe finished, the room felt heavy. This is serious, Mrs. Park said slowly. Very serious. I know, Efe whispered. Mrs. Park folded her arms. If what you're saying is true, you're in danger. Efe nodded. I already am. Mrs. Park stared at her for a long moment. Then she picked up her phone. I'm calling hospital security and internal audit, she said. And I'm logging this officially. Efe's heart dropped. No, she said quickly. Please. Not yet. Mrs. Park frowned. Why? Because someone inside this hospital is involved, Efe said. If you report it now, they'll know it was me. Silence. Mrs. Park exhaled slowly. You're asking me to break protocol. I'm asking you to save a life, Efe replied. Mrs. Park studied her face. Then, quietly, she locked the door. Tell me exactly where you saw the device. Efe felt a small wave of relief, but it didn't last, because at that same moment, Damian Caldwell lay still in his hospital bed, eyes closed, heart steady. To everyone watching, he looked weak, unaware, helpless, but inside his mind, everything was clear. He heard voices, low, whispered. Tomorrow, one man said. If he wakes again, we move him. And the woman? Another asked. We handle her first. Damian's fingers twitched under the blanket. So they thought he couldn't hear. So they thought the test was over. They were wrong. Because the truth was simple. Damian Caldwell had pretended to be sick to test loyalty. But now, loyalty had turned into murder. And the only person standing between him and death was a Nigerian woman the world refused to see. Damian slowly opened his eyes. And this time, he did not close them again. Damian Caldwell waited until the room was quiet. No nurses. No visitors. No soft footsteps outside the door. Only the steady beep of the monitor and the low hum of the hospital at night. Then he moved. Slowly, carefully. He lifted his hand from the bed. No pain. No weakness. No shaking. The truth sat heavy in his chest. He was not sick. He had never been sick. The doctors had said his test results were strange but stable. That was because they were real but incomplete. Damian had paid a private medical team months earlier to prepare everything. Fake symptoms. Controlled medication. A perfect illusion. He wanted to know who would stay when power faded. Instead, he discovered who would kill to take it. Damian turned his head and looked toward the door. Hidden behind the curtain, taped carefully to the wall where no one thought to check, was a tiny camera. Still on. Still recording. He exhaled slowly. So, it's come to this, he whispered. At the same time, 3 floors below, Efe sat stiffly in Mrs. Park's office. The door was locked. The lights were low. And, on the desk between them, lay a hospital tablet showing a paused security feed. Mrs. Park tapped the screen. This camera under the bed, she said. It's not hospital equipment. I know, Efe replied. I've never seen it before. Mrs. Park nodded. Someone installed it recently. No record, no request. Efe felt cold spread through her arms. They were watching him, she whispered. Not protecting him. Mrs. Park leaned back slowly. If this goes public, this hospital will be dragged through the mud. Efe looked up. Then why help me? Mrs. Park met her eyes. Because my job is care, not silence. Efe swallowed hard. Her phone buzzed. A message. Damian Caldwell. They're planning to move me tonight. Not through the main exit. Efe's heart skipped. She typed quickly, Efe, where? 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. Damian Caldwell. I don't know yet. But Grant is involved. And Madeline is lying. Efe's hands trembled. Mrs. Park watched her face change. What is it? They're moving him, Efe said. Tonight. Mrs. Park stood. Then we don't have much time. She reached into a drawer and pulled out an ID card. This badge gives access to the service elevator, she said. No cameras inside. Efe stared. You could lose your job. Mrs. Park nodded. Some jobs aren't worth keeping. They stepped into the hallway together. Quiet. Too quiet. The hospital felt like it was holding a secret. As they reached the elevator area, Efe noticed something strange. The usual night nurse at Damian's floor was gone. Replaced by a man she had never seen before. He wore scrubs, but they were too clean, too new. He smiled when he saw them. Restricted area, he said politely. Please return to your stations. Mrs. Park held up her badge. Supervisor. The man's smile tightened. I'll need to confirm that. His hand slipped toward his pocket. Efe's chest tightened. Mrs. Park stepped forward. Step aside. The man didn't move. Behind him, the service elevator dinged softly. The doors opened. Inside were 2 orderlies and a covered hospital bed. Efe's heart dropped. She could see Damian's shoes beneath the blanket. They were taking him. Now, the man in scrubs glanced back, then smiled again. Sorry, he said softly. This doesn't concern you. He raised his hand, and suddenly a voice cut through the hallway. Put him down. Everyone froze. The voice came from behind them. Strong, clear, very much alive. Efe turned. Damian Caldwell stood upright at the end of the corridor. No IV. No oxygen. No weakness. Just a hospital gown and sharp, furious eyes. Grant stood behind him, frozen. His face drained of color. What are you doing? Grant stammered. You're supposed to be dying? Damian finished coldly. Is that what you told them? The men near the elevator reached for their pockets. Damian didn't flinch. Every word you've said, he continued, every move you've made has been recorded. Grant laughed nervously. You're confused. You've been sick. Damian stepped forward. I pretended to be sick, he said. You pretended to be loyal. Silence fell like a heavy cloth. Madeline appeared from the stairwell, her face pale, eyes wild. You ruined everything, she whispered. Damian looked at her. Did I? He asked quietly. Or did you ruin yourselves? Sirens echoed in the distance. Real sirens. Approaching fast. The man in scrubs cursed under his breath. Grant backed away slowly. Madeline turned and ran. One of the orderlies bolted. The hallway exploded into chaos. And as security flooded in from both ends, Efe felt something cold press against her back. A voice whispered in her ear. You should have stayed invisible. Her breath caught. Because she knew someone had slipped through. And they weren't done yet. Efe froze. The cold metal pressed harder into her back. Her breath stopped halfway in. Around them, the hallway was chaos, security shouting, nurses crying, people running, but in that single moment, the world felt silent. Move, the voice whispered again. Low, dangerous. Efe slowly raised her hands. Her mind raced, but her heart stayed strangely calm. She had cleaned hospital rooms long enough to know one thing. People who threaten in whispers are afraid of noise. She took one step forward, then another. Don't be stupid, the voice hissed. Before the man could pull her back, Efe dropped to the floor. The cold metal scraped past her shoulder as the weapon fired. The sound exploded down the hallway. People screamed. Security turned. The man cursed and tried to run, but he didn't get far. 2 guards tackled him hard, slamming him to the floor. The weapon slid across the tiles and stopped near Damian's feet. Damian looked down at it, then up at the man struggling beneath security. His face went hard. Enough, Damian said. The hallway slowly went quiet. Grant was on his knees now, hands raised, eyes empty. Madeline stood against the wall, shaking, tears streaking her face, but no one rushed to comfort her. Because everyone was finally seeing the truth. Police arrived minutes later. Real police. Not private security. Not quiet men in suites. They separated everyone. They asked questions. They checked footage. They followed the trail Damian had already laid out. The hidden camera. The tampered for. The fake nurses. The blackout. The planned transfer. The poison. It all unraveled fast. Too fast for lies to survive. By morning, the story was everywhere. Canadian billionaire targeted in hospital plot. Brother and executives arrested in shocking betrayal. Cleaning worker saves billionaire's life. People were stunned. Not just by the betrayal, but by who times had stopped it. Reporters gathered outside the hospital. Cameras flashed. Questions flew. Damian stood before them 2 days later. No hospital gown. No tubes. A simple dark suit. Strong. Alive. Behind him stood doctors, security officials, and Efe. She wore her same simple scrubs. Hands clasped. Eyes unsure. Damian stepped forward. I pretended to be sick, he said calmly. I wanted to see who would stay when power faded. Murmurs spread through the crowd. I saw greed. I saw betrayal. I saw people planning my death while smiling at my bed. Gasps. Then he turned slightly, and I saw humanity. He continued. From the one person everyone ignored, all eyes turned to Efe. She is Nigerian, Damian said clearly. She is black. She is poor. She is a cleaner. The words hung heavy. She is also the reason I am alive. The crowd went silent. Efe's throat tightened. She stayed when others left, Damian said. She spoke to me like a human being, not a bank account. She prayed when no one was watching. And when powerful people tried to silence her, she stood her ground. Damian paused. Canada owes her its truth. The cameras turned fully to Efe now. A reporter shouted, Miss, how did you know something was wrong? Efe swallowed. She stepped forward slowly. I didn't feel brave, she said softly. I felt scared. Her voice shook, but she kept going. But I believe something my mother taught me back home in Nigeria. She paused. That no matter how small you think you are, doing the right thing is never small. The crowd erupted, not in shouting, in applause. Damian turned to her. Efe Okoye, he said, you saved my life. Later that day, Damian made another announcement, one that shocked people even more. He set up a foundation, not in his name, in hers. The Okoye Human Dignity Foundation, focused on protecting vulnerable workers, cleaning staff, caregivers, immigrants, the invisible people who keep the world running. Efe didn't ask for it. She didn't expect it. She cried when she heard Grant Caldwell was charged. Madeline disappeared from the headlines. Executives resigned. Deals were frozen. Careers ended. But Efe went home that night. To her small apartment. She cooked rice. She called her mother in Nigeria. And when her mother asked, Are you safe? Efe smiled through tears. Yes, she said. And someone listened to me today. The next morning, Damian sent her a message. You changed how I see people. Stay close. This story isn't over. Efe looked at the phone. At the quiet room. At the life she had almost lost. And the future she never expected. Outside, the world buzzed with headlines. Inside, Efe whispered a prayer of thanks. Because she now knew the truth. Power can pretend. Wealth can lie. But courage? Courage shows up quietly, often wearing scrubs, often ignored, until it saves everyone. If you were lying helpless in a hospital bed, surrounded by power, money, and smiling faces, would the person who truly saves you be someone you trust today or someone you ignore every day? If you enjoyed this story, like, comment, share, and subscribe to our channel for more interesting stories.